Our last video was a fun time where we went over some min facts, like how to T-pose, which definitely gave me TF2 vibes.
Yeah, let's go to the right. That was all you. Thanks, Pally.
So as usual, I'm just going to pick off on some key things from that video. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to Aaron the Pipoga Lord for winning our casual tournament we hosted on Discord. It was hosted a few weeks ago, and I'm still not certain on how frequently we intend to host things like this, but being given a shout out was part of the reward. So good job. And of course a shout out to Fantasy Dragon, the runner-up. Okay, so back to the last video. I had mentioned that I'd briefly thought about testing the screw attack with the bounce pads, but that item doesn't spawn on the stage. However, a ton of people did remind me of a potential way to circumvent this system, with a spirit that comes attached with the screw attack. And sure enough, this spirit does work, allowing you to use the screw attack on this stage. And in doing so, we can see that the screw attack actually has priority over the bounce pads. That is, the jump boost won't work, and instead you'll just do a normal screw attack jump. You can also do this test in custom smash with the screw attack setting, of course. Next, in my last video, I tested to see if Mario could cape any of Min Min's arms, which he couldn't. However, Luke Casual later brought to my attention an even bigger fact regarding Mario's cape in Min Min. That is, whenever Min Min has her arms deployed or is charging a smash attack, she actually cannot be turned around by Mario's cape at all. The same is true for Dr. Mario's cape or Mii Sword Fighter's reversal slash. This is a very unique circumstance, and at first I thought that maybe it was because reversing something with such an extendable figure would be kind of awkward, but you can reverse the Belmonts just fine when they use a smash attack. Then I figured it's possibly due to how Min Min has a unique animation for her smash attacks depending on which direction she's facing immediately before the input. So perhaps the cape not working is just to prevent from turning her around, since that would mess this up. That's my hypothesis at least. Alright, moving on. My patron Felipe Morla asked if Charizard took damage from Villager's watering can. This relates to how Charizard takes damage from being submerged in a body of water. However, when tested, he doesn't take any damage from this watering can. The same is also true for Mario's Flood and Squirtle's Water Gun. These moves technically aren't water as much as they are wind boxes, so that's probably why this effect doesn't come into play here. It would be a really cool feature, but so it goes. Speaking of this hydrophobic mechanic though, SJS4 asks if the Handbow water can deal damage to these hydrophobic characters. I think I already kinda knew the answer to this one, but no. Charizard will not take any gradual damage in this faux water of sorts. It's not really water, as you cannot swim in it or anything. But I thought the question was at least interesting enough to think about, especially since I hardly ever talk about this stage because I hate it. What I don't hate is this certain technique I've known about since Smash 4 and is still present here. Here's how you can jump forever. So the way you want to do this is have a green shell in your hands, jump, and while you're descending, Z-drop the green shell. Z-dropping being pressing the grab button in the air, which allows you to just drop the item. After this, time it so you've bounced on the shell, and then input a neutral aerial immediately afterwards. This should allow you to grab the shell, while still having bounced off of it. Wait a little bit until you're descending again, and repeat. You can do this and try to go up forever, or you can try to time it so you just stall in a certain spot. This is easiest off stage, but can technically be done anywhere. Is this useful? Well, let me get into that. See, this tech works kinda differently for Mario in terms of timing. See, when you Z-drop the green shell after the first bounce, it starts all the way up here. So the timing for when it's then at Mario's feet is very different, meaning the timing for your neutral air, or whatever you're using to catch the green shell again, has to compensate for that. So there's a lot of factors that come into play that will determine if a character can do it. How floaty they are, or rather how quickly they fall in the air, where they hold the green shell, where it appears when they Z-drop it, etc, etc. Those are the building blocks for doing this certain technique, so I encourage you to test it out with your main to see if they can do it. The timing will probably be different for every character based on the aforementioned factors, but give it a shot. For example, Hero normally can't do this technique if he uses a neutral air to catch a shell, as by the time the shell is in position, Hero is already past where he started, which ruins the point of the tech. However, if he uses a move with less end lag, being up air, he can Z-drop the shell earlier, meaning he can bounce off of it quicker, meaning the tech now works. This probably isn't very useful in most environments, but it can be nice if you need to avoid a certain assist trophy for a while, especially since you can even just not catch the green shell after jumping on it, effectively making it a projectile. So have fun with that tech. Speaking of techniques though, Saul asks if you can have intangibility when dodging Shadow's time stop. This is basically asking if, in the period in which Shadow completely freezes time, if your intangibility from spot dodges and such also linger around. And it seems that it does. If you manage to dodge at the moment time gets frozen, you'll retain your intangibility throughout the duration of that freeze. This is actually a pretty neat fact to know if you're in a pickle, yet another cool tech whose practicality is of course arguable. What's also interesting is that if you shield before the time freeze, your shield will stay out while frozen, and you can still be hit by it. But what's even more interesting is that if you let go of shield just before the freeze happens, any attacks that hit you will trigger a parry. So you can basically get guaranteed parries in this moment. Related to this time freeze, Dakari Barbera has shown me a certain mechanic regarding switching your Pokemon. If you switch your Pokemon right before the time freeze, you'll actually completely avoid it. And the timing is actually really lenient too, so long as the Pokemon you're switching to comes out in a point when the freeze is active. It'll be totally ignored. Speaking of the Pokemon switch mechanic though, Dirty Garage Wiffle Ball asks if switching Pokemon gets rid of the Aha or Aegon curse effects. And the curse effect does seem to carry over just fine. There is sort of a pause period when switching though, so if you keep switching over and over, you can technically lower the amount of total curse damage you take. But not by much. I was curious to see if this also affected the flower effect, and that also carries over. However, what doesn't carry over are certain items like the bunny hood, which simply falls off when you switch. The same thing is also true for things like the screw attack and the super leaf, which you have to keep re-equipping every time you switch. And of course the same is true for held items. However, if you turn metal, the metal effect will stay after switching. The same is true for size change as well. Though I got curious about another thing, mostly if switching Pokemon could avoid the size change from lightning. And it does. I mostly like this fact because it's not like spot dodging or being invincible save you from the lightning size change effect. Though using the Warp Star does make you immune to lightning's effect, so I guess switching Pokemon just has a similar property to that. Oh, so I guess I should test what the Warp Star does with Shadow's time freeze. As it turns out, if you're in the Warp Star when the time freeze happens, you ignore it too. So that's pretty consistent. Another thing to note is that the Warp Star will not be slowed down if the person using it slowed down too. I do want to stick to Pokemon Trainer for a bit though, with this fact from Cringy Doggo Lord regarding the Irreversible Control Spirit. That is, if you're using the Irreversible Spirit as Pokemon Trainer in, a battle where the controls get reversed, the Spirit will work just fine and normal at first. But if you switch Pokemon while the reverse effect is happening, all of a sudden your spirits no longer work, and your controls are reversed. This effect doesn't last forever, as the next time the controls get reversed, the spirit works again. It just seems that the spirit effect doesn't carry over when you've switched during this period. You can't exactly see this effect with the Rambling Evil Mushroom, as, with the Irreversible Spirit, you never actually get that mushroom on your head, and thus never get your controls reversed. So you can never actually switch Pokemon during this effect, since the effect doesn't actually happen in the first place. I was curious about how the switch mechanic affected other spirits. First I tested it with the screen flip. And when the screen flips, switching Pokemon doesn't do anything. Likely because the screen flip already occurred, and was just sort of cancelled out by the Immunity Spirit's presence. Then I tested the Heavy Wind effect, and the Immunity Spirit also doesn't stop working when you switch Pokemon here. And I tested it on the lava floor, it doesn't happen here either. So it seems like this function, or rather lack of functionality, only happens with the reverse controls thing. If you can think of other effects for me to test, let me know. Lastly, for Pokemon Trainer, Sweat Only has given me an interesting fact regarding the mechanics of the switch cooldown in Squad Strike. For those of you who don't know, there's a cooldown timer for when you can switch Pokemon again, indicated by the time it takes for the Pokemon Trainer in the background to put away the initial Pokeball. However, there's a mechanic where if you use any special move during this cooldown period, you'll be able to switch a lot sooner. But this mechanic doesn't seem to be available in Squad Strike, as using a special move doesn't seem to do anything to the cooldown time. This is most easily noticeable with Ivysaur, and how I still have to wait a while after using Razor Leaf to switch again, despite how it used to happen instantly after Razor Leaf before. It's possible that this is because in Squad Strike, the Pokemon Trainer themselves aren't actually present physically, so perhaps because the Pokeball beam comes from like the TV or something, this affects it? Anyhow, with Pokemon Trainer out of the way, let's move on. Luke DeGeorges has asked me a question regarding healing items with the Ashley Assist Trophy. Now I've got to start this off with another "for those of you who don't know" segment, but I'm actually one of the people who didn't know before seeing this comment, as obvious as this fact may or may not be. But, if the opponent eats any food items in Ashley's Evil Cloud of Doom, they will actually receive damage rather than healing it. They don't take any knockback or anything, but their percent goes up by about 10 rather than going down any. So the question asked how this worked with other healing items. The Maximum Tomato and the Heart Container both act the same as food, dealing 10% instead of healing anything. The Fairy Bottle is the same. The Healing Sprout and the Healing Field, however, both do their healing jobs properly rather than dealing damage, which is very interesting, albeit slightly disappointing, as some kind of gradual evil leeching effect could have been cool. Oh, and since I just had to know, I tested to see if Hero's heal spell worked, and indeed the spell functions just fine in Ashley's negative zone. Next, Burbo has given me a neat little fact about Yoshi's eggs. If Yoshi turns metal, the eggs that he throws with his up special will also be metal. They don't do more damage than normal, of course, this is purely visual. The same is true for when he turns gold from, say, Xerneas. And these eggs do deal more damage, but for an unrelated reason. Yoshi's shield and egg roll are also affected by this, so if you become gold, you can technically become a golden egg for a short period of time, which is likely worth a lot of money in the black market. But what would be better than being the golden egg is laying the golden egg. However, if Yoshi is golden, his egg lay move won't make the opponent's egg golden or anything like that. But if the opponent is golden and Yoshi uses his egg lay move, then the egg he lays is golden. So it seems like these eggshells take property of the character they're surrounding, which is weird considering how the color of the egg spots are based around Yoshi's color. Lastly for this video, some size change facts. Dogeman talks about how the Daybreak beam changes size with your character. This is easiest seen in training mode. Take a look. It doesn't seem that the beam does more damage, as each time I used it in front of Daisy it did a total of 69.6%. I'm sure it's effectively different though, as it's easier to get hit by all of the hits if it's larger. Finally, with the size change stuff, Nathan Mills says that Peach and Daisy's size affects the key and tempo their Final Smash tune plays in. You normally can't see this, as any and all size changes get reverted once you activate your Final Smash. However, if you play in a custom Smash setting that changes your default settings, we can see it here. Let's compare. To get specific, if my RL skills are still decent, the original tune is in the key of C, while the Mega version is in the key of B flat, a whole step down, and the Mini version is in the key of C sharp, a half step up. So yeah. Anyhow, that'll do it for today's video. Please stick around as there is something I want to talk about, but first a thanks to all my patrons, Felipe Morla, Dadddd, Avenkaru, Burbo, Cody Benda, Raighne, Feurolant, Dino, PinkieOats, Aman Shareef, Skully, and Xammary. Okay, and I just want to take this end of the video time period to ask y'all to level with me here. In each video I make, I go over about 10 to 15 facts, really. Not including the in-the-moment tests I do, I mean facts given to me by you. Now currently in my fact storage Google document, I have over 70 facts. And in my Google form for facts, I have about 2,000 submissions. And I get hundreds and hundreds more after each upload. And for every 100 to 200 submissions I go over, I add about, I'd say, 10% of them to my Google document. I'm not saying stop submitting by any means, but I'm not going to go through every single submission until that number on the forums is 0, because then I'd just be adding clutter to my fact storage document, and recency bias will probably just have me end up ignoring all older facts like I used to. So basically what I'm saying is I get more submissions than I can really use at a time, and while that's terrific since it guarantees the longevity of this series, just know that when you submit a fact to the forum, don't expect me to see it immediately. I've got a lot of interesting facts to go over and I want to make sure each one gets its own time. I still go through these forums a good amount, but honestly expect it to take at least a couple of episodes until your submission gets seen by me. Of course, if you're a tier 3 or higher patron of mine, you get access to my fact spotlight area, where I'll be guaranteed to see your submission instantly, and the chances of me using it in the next video are higher. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure everyone was at least aware of this. I get a ton of people saying, I hope to see this in the next video, when they tell me they've submitted a fact to the forum. And I can't help but just glance at my 2,000 plus queue and just think, haha, yeah, about that. So yeah, stay casual, stay smart, and I'll see y'all next time.